Hi y'all, my name's Jessica Valdez Taves. Thank you so much for coming on this ugly Friday afternoon. You know. But today I wanted to talk a little bit about aging. I think we all know a little bit about aging. Last I checked, we're all aging, so we can all say we're aging experts regardless of how old we are. But also maybe some things that we have found out through research, through experience, and then through people who are actually aging. What are some things that people are doing to keep moving and to keep healthy and to keep grooving, as we like to say, as we age? So today I'm going to share with you some research that's been shown. Also a new, not a new, but it's a trend that's kind of happening that looks at some different ways of why are people in certain areas of the world living to 100 plus. Do you know what it's called if you live to 100 years old?
No, octogenarian.
Lucky. What did you say?
Octogenarian.
That's 80.
That's 80.
80, yep,
Oh, I'm
octo.
already one.
Yeah, there you go, you are an octo, yep. Centenarian. A centenarian. Yeah, don't ask me to spell it, but that's what they say. But the key that we're looking at is not just living longer, but living well, living healthy in those upper years. So we're going to talk about some ways to implement some different strategies in life that you can actually start doing right here and today. And then I actually want to ask you, as some of the experts in aging, what are you doing to stay healthy? What kind of advice do you have for one another? As I often tell my students in occupational therapy, I learn 10% of what I do in my academic classrooms. I learned another 90% working with folks and learning how do people make life work for them, okay? And so therefore, we actually have a lot of that information right now. It's a matter of sharing it and making it work for your lifestyle. I do teach at Ithaca College. Let's see, I think I'm gonna go. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Magic.
There we go. Whew, I know, you can't touch too much because everything starts kind of blowing up. So today what we're going to look at is I probably will speak to you until about 3 o'clock because I can talk forever. Just ask any of my students. Feel free to leave after you've gotten the information you've gotten, but feel free to stay as long as you can. We'll start off with an introduction. I'll give you a little bit about my background and why I'm so passionate about working in this area. Talk a little bit about what occupational therapy is. And there's one of my students, many of you might know Avery. Yeah, she might look a little familiar. So Avery is in one of my graduate level courses for occupational therapy, learning about older adults. So we might have to ask her a couple of these questions, okay? See if she's been paying attention. We'll also talk about what are some of the top tasks. So from the occupational therapy field, what do we feel as a profession are the things that we should be working with as we age? Occupational therapy calls older adults productive aging. That's the category because they want people, regardless of how old you are, to continue to be productive. Now that's a very American term, being productive, and we all feel that productivity. But we need to take a look at it as what are you doing in your life that's meaningful and purposeful? That's how we take a look at it. And we want to make sure you can continue to do those things as long as you can. Rethinking aging. Maybe kind of rethink how we look at aging so that we can have a different perspective. Moving towards healthy aging, this is where we'll get some tips from myself, maybe from Avery if she's still here, as well as yourself, and then some questions. There'll be plenty of time for questions. So to start off, my name, I said my name is Jessica. I've been teaching at Ithaca College since 2007. In the Department of Occupational Therapy. I took a 3-year hiatus and I taught in the gerontology department. My passion is working with older adults. My passion is helping individuals live the most they can, especially in their older adult years. And then unfortunately, Ithaca College closed their gerontology department. That's a whole different conversation. So I went back to occupational therapy and I continue to teach from an older adult perspective since that's where my passion is. So I'm very excited to be here today. I'm on the Longview Board of Directors. This is my second stint on the Board of Directors. I was on the Board of Directors back in about 2010. And one really interesting fact is when I was a student at Ithaca College, I got my undergraduate degree at Ithaca College, so I'm an alum, but I did my internship for recreation and leisure studies at Longview when it was on the other hill. I know, so I kind of go back, okay? So I've kind of been around, and one of the funny things is I love to write postcards.
You're not that old.
Oh, thank you. Just keep talking.
No,
I am.
yeah.
I'm a proud 52-year-old.
Whoa, could we look like that?
Thank you. Stop. No. Yes.
What is the other hill?
The other hill. Okay.
No,
So that's what do we call that? I mean, that's the Cornell Hill.
East Hill.
East Hill. Thank you. I'm not an Ithacan by locate or by native wise, but yeah, the East Hill on your way up to Cornell. I believe it was the old hospital, right? Can anybody confirm that? Okay. We used to have a workshop in the basement. If anybody, yeah. Anyways,
Oh.
so yeah. So I used to live right there, so I started doing some volunteering, which lent into an internship. And one time I sent my mom a postcard and I said, I just found my dream job at this place called Longview. They're gonna have to kick me out. And like 30 years later, this is my 30th anniversary from graduating from college. It hit me the other day and I was like, ooh, here we go. This is what aging is all about. So 30 years later, I'm still here at Longview. So I'm very passionate about here, very passionate about older adults, and I'm very happy to be here. I specialize in older adults. Most of my clinical practice has been working with older adults and adults from hospital ICU all the way through a brain injury recovery program that I used to run out in Colorado, and working with adults who had had strokes and different types of brain injuries and were re-entering into either the workforce or back into life. So I really do have a passion working in this area and want to share with you some of the research that I've learned about and some of the things that I try to help people implement into their lives. Currently I live out in Trumansburg. I have I have 3 boys. One of them's a husband, but I have 2 teenage boys. Yeah, he knows I always say that. One's in college down in Virginia playing baseball. The other one is a junior in Trumansburg High School. They keep me very busy. And one of the things when I told my 16-year-old that I was doing a presentation at Longview, he's like, you know, Mom, you've been working with old people a long time. And I said, I have. He's like, you must really like doing that. And he's like, I like that you do that. So this is the kid that I brought here to Longview on all my days when I was working or on the board. And one of our former students remembers taking my son when he was this tall down the halls, Austin. Remembers my son when he used to wear a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle hat. And we used to race up and down the hallways here to get his energy out before I took him home. So we have a long connection here at Ithaca, as well as Longview. Okay, so what is occupational therapy? I am not going to put Avery on the spot because sometimes we say, what is occupational therapy? What are you talking about? No, I'm not trying to get you a job. If you want a job, maybe we can look into that. But no, that's not the basis of occupational therapy. What we look at is we look at all the things that you want and need to do in a given day. Those are your occupations. So an occupation may have been getting dressed today. An occupation may have been brushing your teeth or taking a shower. An occupation is also eating. So as an occupational therapist, we look at occupations that people need to do or want to do and how we can help them do better. Tim.
My mother used to be an occupational therapist.
Did she?
At Ithaca Medical Center.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
I did not know that. We're gonna have to talk more about that.
yeah.
I love that. I love finding other occupational therapists because typically we're really passionate about trying to get people to do what you need to do and what you want to do. Okay? There's a lot of things that we have to do in this world, but there's a lot of things that we want to do, and we want to help you do that. So it could be anything from a physical activity to a cognitive activity to an emotional activity. Those are all occupations that we might be able to assist you with. Okay, has anybody received occupational therapy or has heard about occupational therapy? Okay, yeah. We're often compared to physical therapy. So a lot of people are like, wait a minute. We do some similar things. We do work on strength. We do work on how much you can move your body. We do work on balance. But we work on those things in addition to what you need to do. How's your balance while you're washing the dishes? How's your balance while you're stepping over into the bathtub? Okay, so we'll look at all those things. We are also the people that might tell you some things about your home need to be changed. We might be the ones that tell you the throw rugs are a trip hazard, or no more stepping on step stools. Yes, because we are the safety police. I often will say that we're the safety police. So we focus on activity that is personally meaningful and contextually anchored within people's everyday lives. So things you want to do. Can you think of something that you really like to do, but it's no longer safe, no longer feasible for you, or you might struggle with it? So think about, those are the things that we would address with you if you were to have one-on-one occupational therapy. Watcha. I'm gonna use the force. Nope. Oh, it worked, yay, okay. So when we take a look, like I said, occupational therapy, we call it productive aging, doing the things you want to do. So we look at holistic and client care. So it's really centered around what individuals' needs are, okay? Impact of routine. So as we get older, we really know that routines are helpful and habits are helpful. So some professions will come in and say, oh, you need to change all that and start taking your medications, then do your shower, then do your breakfast. We understand that rituals are really important, so therefore we're going to stick with your ritual and see how we can help within the ritual that you already have, or the habits that you have in place, okay? Usually they've been working for you for a long time, so we want to keep that up. And then participation in occupations despite limitations. A lot of people say, I no longer read because I have macular degeneration, so I just can't do that. I no longer walk outside because I need a walker. Well, wait a minute, let's take a step back. Those are things you want to do. Are there ways that we can change things so you can still do them? Is there a way that we can set up? Can we change the environment to make it work for you? Maybe we can do some visual rehabilitation because we're also trained in that. So maybe we can do some visual rehabilitation to help you read differently. Okay? Or can we actually change the reading? Maybe we increase the font size, increase the color contrast. So from an occupational therapy standpoint, we will take a look at the environment, we'll take a look at you as the person, and we'll also look at the task or the occupation you're doing and try to help you so that you can do it better, and that's meaningful to you. Oh, did not want to do that one. Okay. There we go. Ooh, that is really hard to see, isn't it? Sorry. So what I have is I have the top interventions that occupational therapy works on with older adults. So aging in place and home modifications is one of them. We're often the group, too fast? Gotcha, thank you. We're often the folks that will come in and will kind of help you redefine your home so maybe it's easier to get around. Maybe something is safer for you to reach. We might move things down on the counter. We really are not fans of step stools because that's where a lot of falls happen. Okay, so we try to find how can we get everything within reachable. So I will often talk about we should be able to reach the things we use the most often between our shoulders and our hips. That way we avoid the bending down or the up on tiptoes. Okay? Keep that comment in mind because I'm going to come back to that in just a little bit to talk about why we might use that as one of our exercises to stay stronger. Fall prevention is the other one up there. Falls are a huge issue as we age, okay? They're actually an issue across the lifespan. I just had one of my students who we did a fall prevention, and she had fallen in the parking lot because they're doing construction at Ithaca, and there was no barrier up. So she literally, and it was dark, and she just literally fell in a hole where they were digging something up. And we are talking, this is an athlete who is on the varsity, one of the varsity teams, right? So it can happen to anybody, but it happens as we age more often. So we have a big role in fall prevention. We also look at low vision and safety with our older adults and how can we either help to increase your visual abilities or change the environment so that it's easier for you to see what you're doing, okay? Driving and community mobility, we can get trained to be driving experts. We do the clinical evaluation so folks can find out about their vision, their sensory, and some other skills that it takes to drive. We also look at social participation and networking. How many of you here have read the book, oh, Bree, can you help me out? Breaking the Code, Breaking the Age Code? Does that sound familiar? Breaking the Age Code. The gerontology department did a book club on it last year. If you haven't, I really strongly suggest this book, Breaking the Age Code. It's going to show you a new perspective about aging, okay? I'll bring it up again so you can write it down afterwards. We often look at chronic disease and management, as well as wellness and health promotion. So those are kind of the big things that we work on, just so you can kind of see the holistic view from an occupational standpoint. So what I want to ask you today are, what are some of the ways that you promote wellness in your life? Whether it's cognitive, emotional, or physical, what are some of the things that you are doing to promote wellness in your lives? Yeah.
Well, I sing in a community chorus.
Sing in a community chorus. Okay, so what does that do for you?
Well, John and I are hoping to move into Longview in a few years, so it'll be easier to get to rehearsals. But I'm with a bunch of people who love to sing. We sing songs in a lot of languages. Spanish, Slavic languages, Mandarin, Chinese, all kinds of things. So
Wow.
yeah, so that helps keep the old brain functioning, and it's a lot of fun, and I'm with people that I like.
Oh my goodness, she just hit on like three major things. One, it's an occupation. Singing is an occupation. You're working on that cognition aspect. Even if you weren't singing in different languages, you're making the right and the left sides of the brain work by reading the music, listening to the words, trying to hit the pitch. I'm not a singer, so all the beautiful things that you all do. But then you also talked about being with people that share something in common, right? Which is really, really important. Good. And then physically, you're also working on your breath control, right? And so one of the things as we get older, we do a lot of this, right? So by singing, it helps open up the chest so that therefore our posture is better. And when our posture is better, we may have less falls.
And we breathe better.
And you breathe better. Exactly. So there's so many great benefits right there. And you love doing it, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that are good for me, but I don't like doing them. Right? I don't like going to the gym. I'm not a gym workout girl. I know it's good for me, but I don't enjoy it. So guess what? I don't go. Right? Because if it's not meaningful and purposeful to you, you just don't find the motivation to go. What else are we doing? What else do folks do to promote wellness? Yes.
I'm trying to keep up with the campus club activity groups.
With the campus club activity,
Cornell campus club.
Cornell campus
Yeah.
club activity group.
Yeah, with different kinds.
Okay, so what does that mean? What kind of things are you doing?
Well, we have meetings on different days of the week
Okay,
throughout the month.
okay.
And then,
I'll repeat it, yep.
they belong to them as well. But there's all kinds of friendship groups, gardening groups, card groups. If you can get a few people, they'll make another group.
Exactly. So she's talking about being involved in different groups, and the Cornell campus groups
You
are
gotta get
a
up and
big
go.
one. Yeah, you have to physically get up and go,
Yes.
right? So that's a good thing. It gets you moving. It gets you outside.
Or you get a ride.
Or you get a ride. Either way, you're kind of moving, changing your
Desperate, you
location.
get the gadabout bus.
Exactly. Or you're waiting for a while for that one. You're one or the other, right? So being involved in different groups that are meaningful to you. There's a quilting group that usually meets here on Friday afternoons, and I'm usually in my office in there and hearing the quilting folks just sharing different things that they do together, and just the joy that the quilting brings. And folks from Longview are invited to that group, and every once in a while some folks from Longview will come down and join, and just hearing the conversations, whether it's about quilting or just what's going on in their life. But they have a shared goal or a shared commonality of quilting. right? Good. Anything else that people do in order to promote wellness?
Okay, local senior groups.
Local senior groups.
And I think I belong to about 4 or 5 of them.
Ooh, I like to hear
And we
that.
take trips
Yep.
and dinner out once a week. There's about 5 different organizations.
Excellent.
And always, you're out every, at least 2 or 3 times a week.
Excellent. So joining different groups, and these ones are more based on your age, right? So they're senior citizen groups. Would they let a 16-year-old come in and join the group?
No,
Well,
no, they
It's
prefer
okay
not.
sometimes if we say no. It's all right, right? Because you want to be with people, this group wants to be people with their same age. Maybe that like the same types of activities. Yeah. So there's different ways that we're promoting wellness. Yeah.
I belong to a group that people that I used to work with at Cornell from the early 80s, and they have a lunch once a month.
Nice.
So they keep you on the list. And
Yeah.
if you can't go that month, you can make another month.
Right.
But then you see all those people.
Yeah, so some of those ongoing, so some of them, when you think about if you had a career or a place that you worked, right, and after you retire, oftentimes we lose that network. And in many countries, retirement is not as big of a deal as it is here in America. Here in America, we set an age, we set a bunch of financial strategies around retirement, and we kind of say, for the rest of my life, I get to be retired. In many other countries, in the video we're going to watch, you're going to see that, wait a minute, not everybody actually retires. Some people continue to work, but because their work is productive, because their work is meaningful, they work at different levels. So maybe not at the height of your career when, some days I feel like I'm never home, like I'm just running. But a lot of these folks are working at a different level where they're able to enjoy and have a good balance. What we call that in occupational therapy is occupational balance. When you've got a good balance in your life between the things you have to do and the things you want to do. How many of you feel like you have a good balance in your life right now? You're able to get the things done that you need to. You're satisfied with the level that you're doing it at. Okay. I will tell you, when I ask this question to my college students, very different. Very different. Okay. A lot of them, because of the focus on college and the focus on school, they feel like that's where all their energy, time, and probably money is going, is into that education, and they feel like they don't have that off balance of doing things that are important to them. School's important to them, but they're really trying to kind of revive from the school. So really also teaching younger folks how to have better occupational balance. And this is where I feel like your generation, your age group could actually help the younger students learn how to really put balance into their lives. I think sometimes we get a new perspective of how to really treat yourself well once you retire. Some of you treat yourselves a little bit better now that you're retired. I've heard it before. I'm not going to say I'm the expert, but I've heard it. I haven't quite yet retired. And to be honest with you, when my financial person said, "What does retirement look like?" I was like, first of all, I sometimes feel with the economy, I don't know if I ever can retire. But then I'm like, I don't know. What would I do if I wasn't working? I know I'll find stuff to do because I'm a busybody, but I like that being grounded to something, okay? So it's something we all need to talk about. I think I might need your help in a few minutes. So one of the ways that I'm working with our students to learn about how to balance, how to have a good occupational balance in life, is to follow the Dan Buettner lifestyle recommendations. Dan Buettner is one of the founders of the Blue Zones. How many folks have heard about the Blue Zones? A couple. Okay, great. There's a great Netflix series out there that I'm going to recommend if you guys haven't done it in recreation. I really recommend that you do it. Yes.
There's some blue zone places up in Ithaca College parking.
I get to park there. Yeah, I like that Blue Zone. Good one. So Dan Buettner, he's a Minnesotan. So of course I had to like him because I'm from Minnesota. So we have that little bond there. But Dan Buettner started out of saying, why are there certain places in the world where people live to be 100 more so than other places? And you kind of look at the typical stuff. But he's kind of dug a little bit deeper. And while there is some good scientific evidence that the blue zones do have people who live longer, they do have people who live longer healthier than other places, there is some science that some people say, well, wait a minute, it could be because of where all these blue zones are located, according to the equator. But this is a way of kind of switching the lifestyle thinking about aging in a different way, of how can we do all the things that we say promote health in an everyday life. So I'm gonna play a video. It's a TED video. It's from 2009, which I know is a little outdated, but it was the best one that kind of tells you about the basics of blue zone. It is a 19-minute video, so grab yourself a drink and a snack, but I really feel that he's got some really important keys throughout. So we're gonna watch this for about 19 minutes.
So the premise of Blue Zone is if we can find the optimal lifestyle of longevity, we can come up with a de facto formula for longevity. But if you ask the average American what the optimal formula of longevity is, they probably couldn't tell you. They've probably heard of the South Beach diet or the Atkins diet. You have the USDA food pyramid. There's what Oprah tells us. There's what Dr. Oz tells us. The fact of the matter is there's a lot of confusion around what really helps us live longer, better. Should you be running marathons or doing yoga? Should you eat organic meats or should you be eating tofu? When it comes to supplements, should you be taking them? How about these hormones or resveratrol? And does purpose play into it? Spirituality, and how about how we socialize? Well, our approach to finding longevity was to team up with National Geographic and the National Institute on Aging to find the 4 demographically confirmed areas that are geographically defined, and then bring a team of experts in there to methodically go through exactly what these people do to distill down the cross-cultural distillation. And at the end of this, I'm going to tell you what that distillation is. But first, I'd like to debunk some common myths when it comes to longevity. And the first myth is if you try really hard, you can live to be 100. False. The problem is only about 1 out of 5,000 people in America live to be 100. Your chances are very low. Even though it's the fastest growing demographic in America, it's hard to reach 100. The problem is that we are not programmed for longevity. We are programmed for something called procreative success. I love that word. It reminds me of my college days. Biologists term procreative success to mean the age where you have children, and then another generation, the age when your children have children. After that, the effect of evolution completely dissipates. If you're a mammal, if you're a rat, or an elephant, or a human in between, it's the same story. So to make it to age 100, you not only have to have had a very good lifestyle, you also have to have won the genetic lottery. The second myth is there are treatments that can help slow, reverse, or even stop aging. False. When you think of it, there's 99 things that can age us. Deprive your brain of oxygen for just a few minutes, those brain cells die, they never come back. Play tennis too hard on your knees, ruin your cartilage, that cartilage never comes back. Our arteries can clog, our brains can gunk up with plaque, and we can get Alzheimer's. There's just too many things to go wrong. Our bodies have 35 trillion cells. Trillion with a T, we're talking national debt numbers here. Those cells turn themselves over once every 8 years, and every time they turn themselves over, there's some damage. And that damage builds up, and it builds up exponentially. It's a little bit like the days when we all had Beatles albums or Eagles albums, and we make a copy of that on a cassette tape, and then let our friends copy that cassette tape, and pretty soon, with successive generations, that tape sounds like garbage. Well, the same things happen to our cells. That's why a 65-year-old person is aging at a rate of about 125 times faster than a 12-year-old person. So if there's nothing you can do to slow your aging or stop your aging, what am I doing here? Well, the fact of the matter is the best science tells us that the capacity of the human body, my body, your body is about 90 years, a little bit more for women. But life expectancy in this country is only 78. So somewhere along the line, we're leaving about 12 good years on the table. These are years that we could get, and research shows that they would be years largely free of chronic disease, heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. We think the best way to get these missing years is to look at the cultures around the world that are actually experiencing them. Areas where people are living to age 100 at rates up to 10 times greater than we are. Areas where life expectancy is an extra dozen years, and the rate of middle-age mortality is a fraction of what it is in this country. We found our first blue zone about 125 miles off the coast of Italy on the island of Sardinia, and not the entire island. The island's about 1.4 million people, but only up in the highlands, an area called the Nuoro province. And here we have this area where men live the longest, about 10 times more centenarians than we have here in America. And this is a place where people not only reach age 100, they do so with extraordinary vigor. Places where 102-year-olds still ride their bike to work, chop wood, and can beat a guy 60 years younger than them. Their history actually goes back to about the time of Christ. It's actually a Bronze Age culture that's been isolated. Because the land is so infertile, they're largely shepherds, which occasions regular low-intensity physical activity. Their diet is mostly plant-based, accentuated with foods that they can carry into the fields. They came up with an unleavened whole wheat bread called nota musica, made out of durum wheat, a type of cheese made from grass-fed animals, so it's high, the cheese is high in omega-3 fatty acids instead of omega-6 fatty acids from corn-fed animals, and a type of wine that has 3 times the level of polyphenols than any known wine in the world. It's called Cananao. But the real secret, I think, lies more in the way that they organize their society. And one of the most salient elements of the Sardinian society is how they treat older people. You ever notice here in America, social equity seems to peak at about age 24? Just look at the advertisement. Here in Sardinia, the older you get, the more equity you have, the more wisdom you're celebrated for. You go into the bars in Sardinia, instead of seeing the Sports Illustrated swimsuit calendar, you see the Centenarian of the Month calendar. This, as it turns out, is not only good for your aging parents to keep them close to the family, it imparts about 4 to 6 years of extra life expectancy. Research shows it's also good for the children of those families who have lower rates of mortality and lower rates of disease. That's called the grandmother effect. We found our second blue zone on the other side of the planet, about 800 miles south of Tokyo on the archipelago of Okinawa. Okinawa is actually 161 small islands. And in the northern part of the main island, this is ground zero for world longevity. This is a place where the oldest living female population is found. It's a place where people have the longest disability-free life expectancy in the world. They have what we want. They live a long time and tend to die in their sleep very quickly. And often, I can tell you, after sex. They live about 7 good years longer than the average American, 5 times as many centenarians as we have in America, 1/5 the rate of colon and breast cancer, big killers here in America, and 1/6 the rate of cardiovascular disease. So the fact that this culture has yielded these numbers suggests strongly they have something to teach us. What do? Once again, a plant-based diet full of vegetables with lots of color in them, and they eat about 8 times as much tofu as Americans do. More significant than what they eat is how they eat it. They have all kinds of little strategies to keep from overeating, which, as you know, is a big problem here in America. A few of the strategies we observe, they eat off of smaller plates. They tend to eat fewer calories at every sitting. Instead of serving family style, where you can sort of mindlessly eat as you're talking, they serve at the counter, put the food away, and then bring it to the table. They also have a 3,000-year-old adage, which I think is the greatest sort of diet suggestion ever invented. It was invented by Confucius. And that diet is known as the Hara Hachi Bu diet. It's simply a little saying these people say before their meal to remind them to stop eating when their stomach is 20% full. It takes about a half hour for that full feeling to go travel from your belly to your brain. And by remembering to stop at 80%, it helps keep you from doing that very thing. But like Sardinia, Okinawa has a few social constructs that we can associate with longevity. We know that isolation kills. 15 years ago, the average American had 3 good friends. We're down to 1.5 right now. If you were lucky enough to be born in Okinawa, you were born into a system where you automatically have a half a dozen friends with whom you travel through life. They call it a moai. And if you're in a moai, you're expected to share the bounty if you encounter luck. And if things go bad, a child gets sick, a parent dies, you always have somebody who has your back. This particular moai, these 5 ladies have been together for 97 years. Their average age is 102. Typically in America, we've divided our adult life up into 2 sections. There's our work life, where we're productive, and then one day, boom, we retire. And typically that is meant retiring to the easy chair or going down to Arizona to play golf. In the Okinawan language, there's not even a word for retirement. Instead, there's one word that imbues your entire life, and that word is ikigai. And roughly translated, it means the reason for which you wake up in the morning. And for this 102-year-old karate master, his ikigai was carrying forth this martial art. For this 100-year-old fisherman, it was continuing to catch fish for his family 3 times a week. And this is a question. The National Institute on Aging actually gave us a questionnaire to give these centenarians. And one of the questions, they were very culturally astute people put the questionnaire. One of the questions was, what is your ikigai? They instantly knew why they woke up in the morning. For this 102-year-old woman, her ikigai was simply her great granddaughter. 2 girls separated in age by 101.5 years. And I asked her what it felt like to hold a great granddaughter, and she put her head back and she said, it feels like leaping into heaven. I thought that was a wonderful thought. My editor at Geographic wanted me to find America's Blue Zone, and for a while we looked on the prairies of Minnesota, where actually there's a very high proportion of centenarians, but that's because all the young people left. So we turned to the data again, and we found America's longest lived population among the Seventh-day Adventists concentrated in and around Loma Linda, California. Adventists are conservative Methodists. They celebrate their Sabbath from sunset on Friday till sunset on Saturday, 24-hour sanctuary in time, they call it. And they follow 5 little habits that conveys to them extraordinary longevity, comparatively speaking. In America here, life expectancy for the average woman is 80, but for an Adventist woman, their life expectancy is 89, and the difference is even more pronounced among men, who are expected to live about 11 years longer than their American counterparts. Now, this is a study that followed about 70,000 people for 30 years, a sterling study, and I think it supremely illustrates the premise of this Blue Zone project. This is a heterogeneous community. It's white, black, Hispanic, Asian. The only thing they have in common are a set of very small lifestyle habits that they follow ritualistically for most of their lives. They take their diet directly from the Bible, Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, where God talks about legumes and seeds, and on one more stanza about green plants, ostensibly missing his meat. They take the sanctuary time very serious. For 24 hours every week, no matter how busy they are, how stressed out they are at work, where the kids need to be driven, they stop everything and they focus on their God, their social network, and then hardwired right in the religion are nature walks. And the power of this is not that it's done occasionally. The power is it's done every week for a lifetime. None of it's hard. None of it costs money. Adventists also tend to hang out with other Adventists. So if you go to an Adventist party, you don't see people swilling Jim Beam or rolling a joint. Instead, they're talking about their next nature walk, exchanging recipes, and yes, they pray. But they influence each other in profound and measurable ways. This is a culture that has yielded Ellsworth Wareham. Ellsworth Wareham is 97 years old. He's a multi-millionaire. Yet when a contractor wanted $6,000 to build a privacy fence. He said, for that kind of money, I'll do it myself. So for the next 3 days, he was out shoveling cement and hauling poles around. And predictably, perhaps, on the 4th day, he ended up in the operating room. But not as the guy on the table, the guy doing open heart surgery. At 97, he still does 20 open heart surgeries every month. Ed Rawlings, 103 years old now, an active cowboy, starts his morning with the swim, and on the weekends he likes to put on the boards, throw up rooster tails. And then Marge Deton. Marge is 104. Her grandson actually lives in the Twin Cities here. She starts her day with lifting weights. She rides her bicycle. And then she gets in a root beer colored 1994 Cadillac Seville and tears down the San Bernardino Freeway, where she still volunteers for 7 different organizations. I've been on 19 hardcore expeditions. I'm probably the only person you'll ever meet who rode his bicycle across the Sahara Desert without sunscreen. But I'll tell you, there was no adventure more harrowing than riding shotgun with Marge Deton. A stranger's a friend I haven't met yet, she'd say to me. So, what are the common denominators in these 3 cultures? What are the things that they all do? And we managed to boil it down to 9. In fact, we've done 2 more Blue Zone expeditions since this, and these common denominators hold true. And the first one, and I'm about to utter a heresy here, none of them exercise. At least the way we think of exercise. Instead, they set up their lives so that they're constantly nudged into physical activity. These 100-year-old Okinawan women are getting up and down off the ground. They sit on the floor 30 or 40 times a day. The Sardinians live in vertical houses, up and down the stairs. Every trip to the store or to church or to the friend's house occasions a walk. They don't have any conveniences. There's not a button to push to do yard work or housework. If they want to mix up a cake, they're doing it by hand. That's physical activity. That burns calories just as much as going on the treadmill does. When they do intentional physical activity, it's things they enjoy. They tend to walk, the only proven way to stave off cognitive decline, and they all tend to have a garden. They know how to set up their life in the right way so they have the right outlook. Each of these cultures take time to downshift. The Sardinians pray, the Seventh-day Adventists pray, the Okinawans have this ancestor veneration. But when you're in a hurry or stressed out, that triggers something called the inflammatory response, which is associated with everything from Alzheimer's disease to cardiovascular disease. When you slow down for 15 minutes a day, you turn that inflammatory state into a more anti-inflammatory state. They have vocabulary for sense of purpose. Ikigai, like the Okinawans. You know, the 2 most dangerous years in your life are the year you're born because of infant mortality and the year you retire. These people know their sense of purpose and they activate in their life. That's worth about 7 years of extra life expectancy. There's no longevity diet. Instead, these people drink a little bit every day, not a hard sell to the American population. They tend to eat a plant-based diet. Doesn't mean they don't eat meat, but lots of beans and nuts. And they have strategies to keep from overeating, little things that nudge them away from the table at the right time. And then the foundation of all this is how they connect. They put their families first, take care of their children and their aging parents. They all tend to belong to a faith-based community, which is worth between 4 and 14 extra years of life expectancy if you do it 4 times a month. And the biggest thing here is they also belong to the right tribe. They were either born into or they proactively surrounded themselves with the right people. We know from the Framingham studies that if your 3 best friends are obese, there's a 50% better chance that you'll be overweight. So if you hang out with unhealthy people, that's going to have a measurable impact over time. Instead, if your friend's idea of recreation is physical activity, bowling or playing hockey or biking or gardening, if your friends drink a little but not too much, and they eat right, and they're engaged, and they're trusting and trustworthy, that is going to have the biggest impact over time. Diets don't work. No diet in the history of the world has ever worked for more than 2% of the population. Exercise programs usually start in January. They're usually done by October. When it comes to longevity, there is no short-term fix in a pill or anything else. But when you think about it, your friends are long-term adventures, and therefore perhaps the most significant thing you can do to add more years to your life and life to your years. Thank you very much.
So that was Dan Buettner, and like you may have seen at the beginning, it was from 2009, but it was probably one of the better TED Talks I've seen of his that kind of gives a nice summary. I will say that they have found a couple more blue zones since then. I think there's a total of 7 now. The other thing with some of the controversy about the blue zones is like, wait a minute, these places all because they maybe are in exotic places and close to the equator was one of them because of weather. Even Loma Linda, okay? But they've actually since found that there are some that are not as close to the equator. So what Dan Buettner did is instead of going out and finding other blue zones, he said, can we create a blue zone? So what they did is they put out a national call through AARP, and they said, are there any communities that are interested in bringing some blue zone attributes? And wouldn't you know, little old Albert Lee, Minnesota, which I spent some significant time there. It is no little town to go back and visit, let's just say. I had some friends from there, so I've been there several times. We played them in sports. So it wasn't anything super exciting, but what they did is they brought some of the blue zone attributes there. They increased the places to walk around. They changed what was available in the schools and in hospitals and in nursing homes, what was in the vending machines. They offered more opportunities for socialization and not always just organized groups, but just more places to sit and for people to just naturally sit down and start chatting. So they went to show that you don't have to live in a place to have longevity, but maybe some of the attributes can be brought to your town or to your group, okay? So this is really hard to see. It looked really good on my computer when I had my glasses on. But one of the things, I think the Netflix series is called Living to 100. Has anybody seen that on Netflix? I think it's 4 45-minute episodes of Living to 100. I strongly recommend it if you have Netflix. I think you might be able to watch some of it on YouTube, and I really recommend Bree. I'm actually using it now in my classes. I'm using it in my graduate level geriatric courses to give students an idea of the different ways we can be holistic and promote health. But the 4 things were move naturally. What is your outlook? So that's kind of your mental health, right? What's your perception of aging? Every year I ask my students in my geriatric occupational therapy class, I say aging is, and I leave it blank. What word would you fill in? Aging is?
Movement.
Movement. Thank you. Positive, yep.
Growing.
Growing.
Strategizing.
Strategizing, yes.
Not for sissies.
Yep, absolutely.
Very good, Jan.
Mm-hmm, right? What do you think my students say, my 20-year-old and 25-year-olds?
Scared.
Oh, that's the number 1 word. I'm petrified, it's scary, don't want to do it. And then I always just tell them, guess what, you're aging right now. Kind of thing. So yeah, so people here in America, when we look towards aging, we see that as a negative, right? So part of what Dan Buettner is saying is this outlook is to see the positive sides of aging. And right here, this is the positive side of aging. That's why I'm really glad that Avery, one of my students, stopped down, because I talk about this all the time, and sometimes as a 22-year-old, they're sitting in my class being like, yeah, right. Yeah, right. But they haven't maybe had the opportunity to work with folks to see some of the positivity. Now, aging is not always glamorous, right? There's some crap that happens. There's some things that change. There's some things that we don't like that will happen, but we have to strategize around it, right? We have to keep moving. We have to find a way to work that into our life. And there's no magic pill. I'm so sorry. All those aging lotions that you can put on, They're not gonna work. Research, and actually those companies are starting to be fined for false advertising, for all the anti-aging, because you can't anti-age. Why would you want, I don't wanna go back to my 20s, I don't know. But anyways, so the outlook. So this is the Rebecca Levy, there it is, Rebecca Levy, the outlook of aging, I think she called it. Research is showing that positive thoughts about aging and positive outlook about aging actually add healthy years to your life.
I agree with that.
Right? Right?
Absolutely.
Finally, somebody has done some research. Finally, somebody has put some numbers behind it. So those of us who do have that outlook of life is okay, I can manage it, I'm gonna strategize, I'm gonna do whatever I can to make it my life. There's finally some research that says yes, positive thinking about aging does result in longevity, and good longevity. Not just adding years and not those happy years, right? So that's something that you can do today, and that's something that I'm teaching my students in order for them to help promote the positive thoughts about aging. Be realistic that things happen. People fall, diseases occur, people lose abilities, absolutely. But what can we do despite that? How can we incorporate that into everyday living? So that can't start at 90, it can't start at 70. So we need to start it earlier. And we need students and we need younger folks to be sharing that with everybody that they know, right? So that can be part of a lifestyle. That's a huge paradigm shift here in America. It's a huge paradigm shift. We got a lot going. I thought, I was really hoping with President Biden and that we were gonna really just see some more things change for our older adults. We did have some policy changes that really benefited older adults. We saw them in therapies. So yes, I wanted more. I wanted better housing, but I want a lot. So anyways, I'm really hoping that the next person that gets in there really does put some older adult policy in place and then follow up with them. Because that's where we need to start, okay? Eat healthy, we've been hearing that forever. So now you know there is no one diet that's gonna do it. It's a combination of diets, right? It's a combination of things that are good for us. We do now know that plant-based is better than meat-based, but that does not mean no meat. That does not mean that at all. A lot of folks are doing what's natural, what actually is grown in your area. We live in a great area, right? This is the type of soil, I mean, I grew up in Minnesota, so I'm from the Valley of the Jolly Green Giant, literally. You can pretty much throw seeds into the ground and something will grow. We're really fortunate, so we need to take advantage of that. Just yesterday, my husband is a middle school teacher, and one of the teachers wrote a grant to bring in fresh food for the kids. And I don't know what it's through, but what they did is because they know that teachers are not always treated the best, right? Teachers work really, really hard. Thank you to all you teachers. And that what they did is they doubled what they were going to give to the kids so that the teachers could take it home. So now the teachers were taking home healthy food. Not only the kids in the school are taking it home. And one of the pieces of research said, you know what? 30% of the teachers in our school have kids. 60% of our kids don't eat well. So that means our teachers might not be eating well too. Boom, right? That's magic. So therefore my husband came home with like fresh carrots and fresh corn on the cob, just things like that that are out there. Many folks can't afford that or don't have the availability. I only like to grocery shop once a week. I really do, if I have to. So sometimes getting that fresh stuff is not always that easy because it might be sitting in my fridge for too long. I'm not one of those everyday shoppers, but I need to change that habit. Because if I want more of a plant-based diet, I'm going to have to change my habit. And that's something that's important enough for me to change my habit. So that's one step that I'm going to make in order to get more fresh food. And I'm just gonna have to go shopping more often. I do not shop at Wegmans because I can't get out of there under an hour or under $100. But I am going to try to find ways to bring home more fresh food so that it stays and is available. Connecting, making those connections, and you all already talked about that with your senior groups, with your Cornell groups. So thinking about that, I look at the recreation list here at Longview. There is something going on every 30 seconds. right? It feels like there's always lots of activities. So being involved in those. So remember that those activities, wherever you, I'm a former activities director, no matter recreation director, wherever you go, those activities are based off of an activity director, right? Other people who live there and people who used to live there that say this is what we want. If you come into a facility, if you come into a community center and you say these activities don't fit what I like, tell us what you want. What are the things that are interesting to you? What are the things that you want? Okay, because we might be going off of past history or what we think people want. So tell us what you want so we can create programs that fit your needs, right? I mean, otherwise we're making it up. We're like, oh, this sounds fun, but I'm also a 52-year-old. That might not be fun for you. So let us know. That's how we've got to communicate and connect all these generations. And then move naturally. So this is the one I kind of want to, I am so sorry. This looks so great on my computer, but boy, it's barely hard to see. So I wrote down the 4 things that Dan Buettner said, move naturally. And I want to start generating ideas here. So let's talk about move naturally. He made the comment that a lot of folks have gardens, right? And so when you're gardening, if you've got a raised bed, you're still walking and you're still reaching, right? You're still moving. And this is, guess what this is? This is an exercise that you might pay me to teach you, but you're doing it naturally while you're gardening, right? You might be pulling on things. You might be weeding. Those are all things I'm also going to teach you. In hand therapy, I'm going to give you exercises to do that. So you can do this 20 times a day, or you can do something more natural, right? So gardening is a great one. If you're gardening still on the ground, right? You're going down, or you're kneeling, or you're on a cart, and you're bending at the hips, you're bending at the shoulders. Well, shoulders don't bend. If they do, you're going to need to come see me. But you're moving the shoulders, right? So gardening is one of those things that they found across the boards that people were doing, and one, it helped fulfill what they enjoyed doing, but they also, it was something that helped them move naturally. One of the episodes, they show a lady filling up her water can, right? So she's bending over, filling up her water can, lifting up these big old things of can, or she doesn't have the strength to do that, so she fills up just like a small coffee can full of water and then walks over and pours. But she has to do that 20 times. But those 20 times, you could pay me $100 in therapy. And I'm gonna do the exact same thing. Or you can do it on your own, doing something that you enjoy doing. So what are some other ways that maybe you're already moving naturally, or things that maybe you can change so you are moving naturally?
If I went downstairs and my laundry wasn't finished,
Yeah.
the laundry machine doesn't move because it's solid.
Yes.
So I used to do planks, look out the window and watch the birds while I was doing planks.
Nice. So doing planks on your washing machine.
Well, it's not going anywhere.
It's not going, you're right, it's actually more
It's solid.
stable, right? It's more stable than most things in your home, you're right. So while, if the washing machine is still going, go ahead and do some exercises there, something that you enjoy. It's nice and sturdy for those of you that have difficulty going up and down. Boy, that washing machine is really good for that. Can even turn to the side, do some side ones, do some different exercises.
You can do a lot before you get out of bed.
Yeah, exactly.
I
So
can't
washing
bend my
machine.
knees up and do my wrists and my ankles and
So doing things in bed before you even get out of bed to wake up some of those creaky joints? Yeah, absolutely. Weren't you telling me that what did you learn? Some exercise?
Yeah, to lift your knees, like kind of stand and lift your knees waist high. And you want to kind of lift your arms, because as you get older, it's harder to walk and lift your legs. So if you keep on having that memory, the muscle memory to lift your legs, it's going to be easier for you.
So we want to see everybody walking around Longview like
Do not blame
right.
Ryan.
Right. Yeah, but something, right, like instilling something like that, even if you did that for 30 seconds a couple times a day. Because I guess what? I know you have 30 seconds.
But what kind of things can you do? My right hand I can do squeezes, can't get this hand. Why? That's my dominant hand.
Right.
And I try doing all the pressing the knuckles in and trying to move them, but that one still doesn't.
Just doesn't
Do
move as
all
much,
that.
okay? What are some maybe natural ways we can move the hands? Of course we can always do exercises. That's a therapist's dream. I would love to have you do exercises all day long, but about 1/10 of you are gonna do them. So what are some different things that are natural that you might be doing an action like this?
Carrying the groceries.
Carrying the groceries, absolutely, right? So you're carrying bags of groceries, you're grabbing things out of the bag, you're putting them down, you're grocery shopping and grabbing things, you're opening and closing, right? So absolutely, you can be picking up things. Picking up things naturally, right? Instead of trying to get all your stuff in one basket. So this is where the balance comes in. One of the things I'll often tell people is energy conservation. So you're cleaning up after dinner, you might go to the table and maybe you have a tray or a basket and you put several glasses and plates in that tray or on that cart. Take it into the kitchen so you only have to do one trip. That's energy conservation. That's for a reason for some people. But if you're trying to naturally get some movement, guess what? Go here, grab a couple plates, walk into the kitchen, chook, go back out, get your glass. You're getting in some natural walking. Believe it or not, as I was prepping this last night and I needed to take a little, or yesterday I needed to take a little mental break, I went out to my garden. And I was being too lazy to go get my garden cart, but my corn didn't make it. The Jolly Green Giant did not instill in me enough, but my corn did not make it. So I was pulling out the stalks, right? And instead of putting them all in a wheelbarrow or my little garden caddy thingy, I decided, you know what? I'm gonna try this. And I would take 2 and I carried them out to where I'm letting them dry and driving my husband crazy. And then I went back and I had like 15 of them. And I was just back and forth and I was just as happy as a clam. And next thing I know, okay, that took 10 minutes, but boy, that's exercise that now I don't necessarily need to do. My garden got cleaned out and I thought, hey, I just did something that I'm gonna recommend tomorrow. Can I do it myself? If I can't do it myself, I have a hard time recommending it to folks. So stuff like that. So the bathroom, I feel like we always recommend to get exercise, park far away from wherever you're driving and take the stairs and not the elevator. When my mom hears that, my mom turns 80 years old in a couple months. When my mom hears that, she's like, she's like, no, I'm not gonna park far away. I live in Minnesota, it might be icy, I might be carrying bags out. And then she's like, and I'm not gonna take the stairs because that's a fall risk for me. So then all of a sudden she's done with exercise and she doesn't listen to you. Like if that's your advice, she like tunes you out. So I'm like, okay, still make sure you're doing things that are healthy for you and that are safe for you, but I don't need to ask this question, but all of us need to use the restroom, right? So one of the things that I recommend is after you use the restroom, take a walk around your apartment to get in some extra exercise, right? Don't do it before, you're probably going to the bathroom for a reason, right? So go to the bathroom, take a walk around the apartment, or take a walk down your stairs, whatever is most comfortable that feels like it's not gonna disrupt your day, but just gets in a little bit more movement. What else? What else can you do that could naturally make you move?
I live on the second floor
Okay.
of a condo.
There you
So
go.
I have 13 steps to go up and down, railings on both sides, very
Good,
important.
good, yeah.
And I use that as my exercise. Up and
Excellent.
down maybe many times a day, and I have a routine, backwards and forwards, using my knees,
Okay,
holding on,
okay.
but I use that stairway as my exercise.
That's great. That's great. And that's what we're talking about is kind of doing something that's comfortable to you and that is safe doing, right? Perfect. What else are we doing?
I stand on one leg while I'm eating coffee in the
Yeah.
microwave.
Oh, well, you're heating coffee in the microwave. Okay, so you know how long it's gonna be. Good, a little single leg balance. That's one of the tests I'll often do for your balance and for walking and to see if you can use a cane. They'll do a one leg stance and how long you can hold that for. That's great, because that also makes the muscles in one leg co-contract. Because believe it or not, you have a dominant hand, you also have a dominant leg. And so that dominant leg seems to be the one that we hang out on. And when I'm standing like this with kind of my hip popped out, I'm using no muscles. I'm hanging out on what we call the ligaments. So nothing is being activated. So by standing on one leg, you have to activate both muscles that hold you up. There's 14, but anyways, both sides. Yeah, that's a really good one. I think I'd be waiting for my coffee. Maybe I'll do little stutter steps. Yes.
Well, this drives my husband and son bats, but I have a a hand whisk broom and a dustpan, and I go around, sweeping up stuff like this, and I have no problems with my knees, no problems getting down on the floor, and I've been doing that for years.
That is perfect. That is
I call it
perfect.
recreational sweeping.
I'm not sure if I get a lot of people to buy into that one, but that's exactly what we're talking about, some of that natural stuff. Can I tell you a big one? I'm not gonna ask you to raise your hands, but I loved it as a new OT, but now I don't like it as a seasoned OT. You know those really awesome Barca loungers, recliners, right? They're awesome. And then you have a button that picks you up. Have you seen those? And the chair will literally come up to standing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, when those came out, I thought, my goodness, all my people have had hip and knee replacements. Oh, but now as a seasoned therapist, I'm like, get rid of them, throw them away. I want you to stand up on your own. I want you to use those quads to stand up, because the more we just let everything else do the work for us, the less this declines. Okay, the Barca lounge is still going to be there, but we need to keep those muscles. So what else are we doing? What else can we do, or what else have you already done? Yeah.
I find yoga very, very good. I use the stretches as I'm gardening
There you go.
and I have a lot of physical work because I have a farm.
So you're still
That's what
working.
keeps me going.
I was gonna say, you're working on a farm and you're using some of your yoga techniques in order to be able to do that.
Because it teaches you to line up your body correctly so that you're not struggling to do the chore.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you might need to take some of those classes to kind of learn
And
proper
chair
body
yoga is
movement.
great too.
You do it here?
No, I don't. I do it. I live in Canada, so I do it in Owego.
Oh, okay, okay.
But chair yoga is excellent because it
chair
doesn't
yoga.
put any stress on your joints while you're doing it.
Exactly. So chair yoga is another version. If the stand-up version doesn't work for you, getting up and off the ground, there's chair yoga. Yep. What else are we doing? So get rid of those Barca loungers, sorry. You know, one of the things with modernization, and I think they bring it up in the Blue Zones video, is, for example, washing machines and dishwashers and vacuum cleaners. All of those are wonderful inventions, and as somebody who uses all of them, I do love them. But when you're vacuuming, that is some exercise. It burns. I remember I used to know how many calories it burned, but it's not the same as sweeping and walking with the sweeping with the actual this motion, right? So our snow blowers, as a Minnesotan, I love my snow blowers, but that shoveling of snow is actually really good for you. Even just going outside to sweep your sidewalk, even if your sidewalk does not need to be swept, even if you don't have a sidewalk, but you maybe have a little patio or a little deck, you should also be sweeping that. When you're using your arms, it makes your heart pump harder. When you're standing up and using your legs and using your arms, it also is a full body exchange, so therefore the body really likes that. Okay, so if you can stand up and do something while using your arms physically, that will increase your motion.
I say that makes me smile because I used to always sweep the walkway and the driveway, and then my kids would come home from school and say, the people on the bus, the ride, why is your mother always sweeping the driveway?
See, look at that. You knew exactly what to do. Exactly. So one of the things that they show the folks in Italy is that they make a lot of their food by hand, right? I throw a lot of my stuff in my KitchenAid or in my mixer or my blender, and I just for 2 minutes go set that for 2 minutes. What happens if I do this? Right? I might need a break when the mixer doesn't, but I can go back and do it. I don't think any cake mix has ever not worked because I took a 5-second break. Okay? So doing things by hand, doing the bread. I mean, I don't know if a lot of people are making their own bread, but the Italians were making their own bread and their own pasta and rolling them out. So that's that physical activity, right? So think about some things that you can do every day to keep that activity moving. And then the other part I really want to emphasize is the social connections, right? The social connections are really hard. And I'm going to tell you, I have worked at various levels in facilities most of my life. and working either as an occupational therapist or a recreation director, as a certified nursing assistant. That's why I put myself through grad school. And I will tell you that the loneliness and the social isolation is rampant, right? I have a mom who is widowed and she lives on 5 acres, 5 miles into the woods, but I shouldn't say still, she works, she drives a school bus, and I say, Mom, it's time for you to it's okay. She's like, if I stop, I will die. She's like, if I'm stuck out here in the country, she's like, and not see anybody, she's like, that's it. My mom's very social, just like me. We have to see everybody and talk to everybody and, you know, that type of thing. And so she knows that. So she likes staying in the country because it forces her to get up and go into town. She actually reduced the size of her, we're Italian, so we have big refrigerators and maybe 3 or 4 of them. But she reduced her refrigerator upstairs so she would have to go up and down the stairs a lot to bring up the stuff from the freezer, kind of thing. And so that she couldn't shop as much, so she'd have a smaller fridge. So that would make her go to the grocery store more often. Because she could literally live in her house for up to 2 weeks by herself if she wanted to. She doesn't want to. So I'm glad she's got that positive outlook for that and wants to be social. So what I was going to say about living in a facility, the social isolation and the loneliness is sad. And I will tell you that I bet if you were to knock on a neighbor's door or to go say hi to somebody without being asked, that person most likely would invite you in, most likely like to have a conversation. I'm not sure what it is that as we get older, we feel that people don't want to have conversations with us. That is not true. One of the things that people tell me, I work at Cayuga Ridge Nursing Home on the weekends, one of the things like, oh, I didn't know anybody was coming in on a Saturday. Oh, I'm just so happy to be able to talk to somebody. Right? And that, I mean, I'm there to do therapy, so I'm like, oh, I'm going to make you do a lot more than talk to me. But, you know, when I hear that from people that they just wanted to talk to somebody, that to me says there's so much more we can do. So you've got to let people know what you need. You've got to maybe step out of that thought of, you know, other people are just fine. They've got a spouse. They're doing things. They're involved. You don't know that it's like 60% of older adults report loneliness. So it's a good chance that there's many of you in here that would really benefit from a visit from somebody and a knock on the door or even just a little note thinking about you today. Have a great day. Right? So that's that social connection. So there's a lot of things we can do right now, and there's a lot of things that we can do next week. So it's for us to be able to make these changes in our life, we have to say, what do we want to change and what could be better for my neighbors as well as myself. Doing that natural movement and connecting is really important. So I'm going to say get moving with your brain, with your heart, and with your legs. Keep connected. Keep everybody. Let us know, the other generations, how it is to age and what can make your aging better so that we can help you age better. We can age better, and then we can have a new perspective of aging. Because it's going to take a whole generation to make this paradigm shift to really turn around how we view aging and what we want to do as we're agers. So, thank you very much for spending the afternoon. You're 3 hours or you're 2 hours older, and we all are. So, thank you very much.